Drives you crazy.
But I had to say,
All right, y'all ready? Here we go. It's now time to call our meeting of the Bulloch County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome the media and visitors. I would also like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones and other devices so that we may conduct the people's business without interruption. Commissioner Nick Newkirk will give the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with grateful hearts for the opportunity to serve our community. Grant us wisdom as we make decisions that affect the lives of those who we represent. We lift up our nation, asking for your continued blessings on America. Strengthen our leaders at every level. We especially pray for the brave men and women who serve in public safety, our law enforcement officers, firefighters, first responders, military personnel. Protect them as they protect us. Give them the courage in times of danger and peace in times of uncertainty. We also ask for your blessings on the student athletes and their coaches who are with us tonight. May they be guided by integrity and uplifted by the support of their community. May we all do here tonight and bring honor to you and serve the people with justice and compassion. Amen.
Amen.
Also on the pledge, I saw we had some Boy Scouts out there, so I'm going to call Troop 337 out of Brooklyn up here to lead us in the pledge. I know they probably don't want to do it, but the parents wanted it done.
Y'all can come right down here.
Right here in front, right here.
Flags over here.
I see you.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Miss Mincy White will call the roll of the commissioners.
I, Venus Missy White, present as Clerk of the Board of Commissioners of Bulloch County, hereby call the roll for those on the governing body. All those present shall answer by saying aye. Chairman David Bennett.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Toby Connor.
Aye.
Commissioner Ray Mosley.
Aye.
Commissioner Anthony Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Nick Newkirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Timmy Rushing.
Aye.
And Commissioner Ray Davis. I've determined that we have all members of the Board of Commissioners present. Therefore, we have a quorum to conduct business for the good of the citizens of Bulloch County. I now yield the floor back to the chairman.
Thank you. Before I entertain a motion to approve the general agenda, do we have any other discussion or modifications desired by the interim county manager or the board? If there's no further discussion, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Motion passes with unanimous decision. Okay, moving right into our presentations. Can I get the Southeast Bulloch flag football team to come to the front. Hey, how are you? So we've got head coach Marcy Cochran, and this is the Southeast Bulloch High School flag football team. Right group, right?
Right, great, got
Okay,
it.
all right. So we're going to present them with a proclamation tonight, and I got to get my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing here. And it says that the Southeast Bulloch High flag football team has made prep sports history in the United States and in Georgia by becoming the most dominant athletic team in any sport by achieving an unprecedented 4 consecutive Georgia High School Association Division I state championships in the team's first 4 years of formation. And it says their head coach, Marcy Cochran, and assistant head coach Nick Cochran continue to be considered as the sports ambassadors across the state and continue to dedicate time, effort, and energy to help other schools establish flag football programs. And head coach Marcy Cochran was named the Division I Flag Football Outstanding Coach for 2023 during the annual Atlanta Falcons Football Awards Show. There's a whole list of other accolades on here that we're just going to go down here to the bottom and say, now therefore it be resolved that Bulloch County Board of Commissioners recognizes and honors the Southeast Bulloch Lady Jackets flag football team for their latest state championship and wishes them success in continuing their dominance across the state. In witness wherefore, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the official seal of the Bulloch County Board of Commissioners to be affixed this 4th day of February of 2025. I think we got like 15 people that are gonna take pictures here while we rip them in.
We get the commissioners to stand behind, up at the
I
dais.
think we're gonna come over this way a little bit. Right here. All right, y'all standing.
Tell you what, if, y'all will come out, we get the girls to come out in front of the,
After jag bara svänger, jag slänger in med sving bara säger så här.
No, I'm a little short.
Like y'all done this before, man.
Already all am.
Everybody good?
Marcy, I think we're just gonna start buying frames in bulk,
Right.
just like an annual order.
Everybody good? Okay, so what they didn't tell y'all is now that y'all are done with this, we're gonna play a little impromptu flag football. It's gonna be all the commissioners, and then we're gonna get Dee and Hobbs. We're gonna take on all y'all, okay? Y'all ready? Okay. That may be because we're all old and broke, but it'll be fun to watch, right? Okay. Hey, congratulations. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
I was about to say, we're done. I can't find my glasses. Okay, next up, we're going to have Planning and Development Director James Pope come up and give an introduction and overview of development impact fees.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to present to you tonight. I'm James Pope. I'm the Planning and Development Director for the Board of Commissioners. What I wanted to bring to you tonight was really just a high-level overview an introduction, maybe some of you all have looked into impact fees, but really an introduction to impact fees and what, really what the process would be for implementing impact fees in the community. What would that mean time-wise, and then potential financial impacts that would create. So I'll try to, Dow, I don't know if you could, but maybe at least put 15 minutes on the clock because I don't want to get too long-winded. But again, my intention here is a high-level overview, and then as some of the commissioners and I have talked over the past couple of months, there's a couple of consultants that specialize in impact fees, and it would probably benefit you all to have a consultant come in and give you the, I'll say, unlimited time and devotion for questions to impact fees at a later date. But if you were going to look into impact fees in the next year, there would be some financial concerns that we would want to include in the budget. And this being just prior to the budget season, I felt like this was a good time to bring this forward. So what is an impact fee? It's really defined as it's a fee that would pay for the development's fair and proportionate share of impact to the community. We all know that development in the county, or anywhere really, it does create a demand for your schools, public safety, your transportation infrastructure, recreational facilities, your water and sewer, stormwater. And so it's a way to capture some of the lost fee or lost revenue that, in my zoning reports, when I have a financial impact analysis, a lot of times it comes back as negative in a residential development. It's a way to kind of bring that negative impact up to par in the immediate term rather than waiting for a period of time for it to catch up. But there are one-time fees that new developments pay at the time of the construction of the facility, whether it's a commercial facility, industrial facility, or a new home build. Now, what is a development and what is an impact? An impact does not, as far as residential goes, it does not differentiate between your single-family home in a subdivision or if you want to build a house on 20 acres that your grandfather gives you the land and you want to build a house. So just keep in mind, impact fees would apply countywide for all home structures, mobile home, conventional built home, commercial structures, and industrial structures. But it is a tool to be used for guiding growth and encouraging development in certain areas. And I know in the audience not going to be able to see this, but commissioners, just to point out, in the coastal region, there's 4 counties that have impact fees, and then 1 city, which is City of Savannah, that has impact fees. So it's been a tool used in development since the 90s. And so what I really want to get into in this report is where do we start, or how would you start? You'd first have to hire a consultant to produce a methodology report, in which I'll go over what a methodology report includes. You have a capital improvements element, which, going back to your comprehensive plan, you'd have to amend your comprehensive plan to include some capital planning of what impact fees are going to pay for. And then you have to adopt an impact fee ordinance. And so until the time an impact fee ordinance is in place and adopted by this board, in whatever format it is, you cannot charge an impact fee. And then ever after that, you have your annual updates for capital planning, and periodically you would look at your impact fee structure how much you're charging, and so on. So just basically, I guess, what gives you the power to implement impact fees is rooted in the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act. Again, that was Georgia's response to, instead of negotiations with developers in zoning and things like that, and you squabble with developers over who's going to pay for what, the state really looked at this as a way to just go across the board, fair share, proportionate charges for impacts. And so you see it more in the metro areas, a lot of your growing communities. But again, there are some in the coastal region that do it. So the very first step, you would form a steering committee consisting of between 5 and 10 people. The law says you have to have at least 50% representation by the development community on that steering committee. So the ones that it's going to impact perhaps the most in maybe their business model or whatever, the state recognized that they need some representation when you draft an ordinance and implement impact fees. So what could you charge an impact fee for? Your transportation network, which would be roads, streets, bridges, your parks, open space, public safety, which, again, that's a broad term, but Department of Public Safety, that would be anything under that umbrella. Water supply, wastewater, stormwater. We don't, at this point, really have a end user in the water supply or wastewater sewer infrastructure, and so that's probably not too much of a concern at this point if you were to go ahead and implement impact fees. Stormwater control, that's mostly in the more urbanized areas. But your water, wastewater, and stormwater, you could also have other fees for that. So a lot of communities don't necessarily add those impact fees. And then you could have libraries enlisted as related services, but most communities exempt library services for that. So once you have a steering committee, you would really look at your comprehensive plan and what levels of service your comprehensive plan points to. Where are your areas of growth that have been identified for growth in the county? And then, again, included in your comprehensive plan, we have population projections that, based on your population projections, your methodology report, going down to the next level, your methodology report looks at a lot of very technical calculations on what services are going to be needed coming up in typically you're looking at 20 years down the road, what level of services are going to be needed, and then it really boils it down to a square footage price or a per household price on impacts to maintain your current level of service going forward. So you can't necessarily build a fire department on the back of impact fees, but if your level of service based on 10,000 more people moving in, unless you buy additional fire trucks, you're going to have a lower level of service as a result. So an impact fee would be a way to, the way I look at it is, one subdivision may buy 2 tires for the fire truck, another one may buy the front 2 tires, another one may buy the engine, but over time, that money adds up where you, again, maintain the level of service. But the methodology report determines that level of service, and it's a very complicated, complex process. And I mentioned consultants. A consultant, I've identified 3 primary impact fee consultants. One's in Maryland, one's in Texas, and one's in Georgia. The one that's written most of the ones in Georgia are again, from the one out of, well, I call it Atlanta. But the cost to have the methodology report and follow through the process would be about $100,000. So again, this being a high-level overview tonight, I'm just throwing it out there. If you're looking at budgets coming up, if you want to do this, and we can have conversations, of course, after tonight, but that's about what you're looking for, or what you're looking at going forward is, if you want to get in the impact fees, it's going to be about $100,000. So following the methodology report, as that is developed, I mentioned the capital improvements element. That's taking all your future capital needs for 5 years, which we already do capital planning. That part I don't think would really be that difficult, but you're just tying it to the future impact. But you're, again, looking at and creating a 5-year plan for what you would spend the impact fees on. And the impact fees would have to be spent, if they're collected for transportation, they go to transportation. And transportation-related items in an impact fee or the capital improvements plan. So you couldn't necessarily just throw it in the general fund and say, this. So there's some regulation there on how you can spend it. As you do the methodology report, the steering committee would also develop an impact fee ordinance. So that's looking at how you're going to implement the impact fees. What the methodology report would tell you is, and based on all the calculations and current level of service, they'll come back and say, okay, now if y'all want to add these 4 services, you can charge a maximum amount per household of, I'll use City of Savannah's most recent calculation, is about $5,000 a house. So they'll come back, the methodology report will come back and say you can charge up to $5,000 a house. But your impact fee ordinance would set the fees, and then depending on how this board and the steering committee feels and the community overall feels towards impact fees, you could very easily say, well, we're just going to charge 25% of it or 75% of the maximum. And it would just be expected that you just have to make up the difference elsewhere through other funding methods. But so again, you have methodology report, impact fee ordinance that you would be drafting. And to note, there are 3 exemptions that you could provide. Project with a specific economic development and employment growth. That project could be eligible for an exemption, as well as affordable housing. So if you have a concern about affordable housing and a project meets the threshold, then you could exempt that from impact fees. However, the county would have to make up the difference. So I guess an impact fee is identified, so somebody has to pay at the end, or overall. So, but there are some exceptions. Let's see. And then finally, I mentioned methodology report. I mentioned while you're doing that, you're doing the impact fee ordinance. But before you can adopt the impact fee ordinance, you have to have approval from the State Department of Community Affairs, where they look at your capital improvements element and it's taking in all of your policies and your methodology reports, and they're stamping off a level of approval that says, okay, you've met all the requirements by the state. You can now adopt your impact fee ordinance. So again, it's a process. Well, how long does that process take? Process is about, I would figure, on about a year. So if you want to look at impact fees and hire a consultant, which that would take a little bit of time, from the time you say go, you're looking at about a year before you can implement them. But so you're defining your service areas for whatever those services I mentioned before. Typically, they're going to be countywide services. Of course, it's only going to be collected in the unincorporated area, so all that is spelled out in the methodology report and so on. So, and I didn't want to get into methodology stuff tonight, but the next really takeaway, and I'll go on after this, but the law says there's difference in project improvements and then system improvement. So if you think was a project specific improvement that they may have to make, well, it's common, like a turn lane for a subdivision would be something that a developer would currently have to pay for because that's specific to that development. That would be a project improvement. So they would be paying for that separate on top of impact fees for system improvements. So there is a distinction in a project and a system improvement. Your system improvements overall, I know Bryan County uses development agreements a lot, and so it's complex, but there's a way to do it. Lastly, I'll just say that impact fees they don't pay for regular maintenance and operations. It's just, again, the purchase of capital equipment, land, build a building, stuff like that. But you can collect a 3% administrative fee on top of that or from the revenue, which would go to the general fund and help fund operations and maintenance. And then lastly, the highlight I wanted to mention is that if you collect the impact fee, you have to spend it or encumber it within 6 years, or you have to pay it back with interest to the payer. So if you we say, hey, let's do all the available services we can, but we have a library service and we don't do anything in the library service, well, then you're going to have to pay back all that's paid in for that specific service. So, anyways, it's a lot to think about, and depending on what the board's take on it is, I'll be more than happy to line up a consultant and come in for a work session either before or after a meeting, and y'all can go through and ask all the questions you want. I mean, I can take some questions now, but that's up to you. But again, hopefully that at least puts the idea out there that there is a tool that you could look into. It's a proportionate way for development overall to at least be considered. So.
Mr. Pope, I think you made it clear, the impact fees would apply to everybody, mobile homes, private landowners, subdivisions, everything. And
Correct.
And so with that being said, but then we would have to have guidelines how to spend the money and all of that. Couldn't the same thing be accomplished through building permits?
Not exactly. You can only charge so much in building permits that covers the cost of the actual inspection and to run that service. Now, the impact fees would be collected at the time, either at the time someone files for a building permit, or I think a specific instance I'm thinking of, they collected it at the certificate of occupancy at that stage. So you're not creating the impact until someone's living in the home truly. So, that's maybe less money they have to come up with up front. But again, if you look at impact fees and ask the consultant, what would be a roundabout number, and it's just so complex that every community is different. I mean, since several of us have had conversations about it, I've really taken a deep dive into impact fees, and it just varies across the communities so much based on what you want, level of service wise, or what you currently provide. and then population growth, things like that. So, yeah. So. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. First item, approve the minutes for Monday, January 27th, 2025. Second, approve a sole source purchase pool paint for Splash in the Borough Water Park from Tinmec Company Incorporated in the amount of $23,173. Approve the request for Victims of Crime Act grant for the District Attorney's Office for the federal fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $104,453. Approve an easement to the Georgia Power Company. Approve and ratify the use of Sand Creek Land Construction for hauling services for the week of January 13th through January 17th, 2025 in the amount of $16,590. Approve and ratify hauling services from J.L. Doriso Trucking from January 8th through January 17th, 2025 in the amount of $17,255. And approve a special event permit for Statesboro Ducks Unlimited to host a nonprofit event at Ogeechee Technical College, 20 Joe Kennedy Boulevard on February 27th, 2025 from 6 p.m. until 9 p.m. We can approve these items collectively, or we can move any item to new business for further discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We could we please move 5 to new business?
Number 5, moving it to new business.
We also move number 4, please.
Moving number 4 to new business. Anything else?
And number 2, just for brief discussion from the Recreation Department on that.
Okay. So with the exception of number 2, 4, and 5, do I have a motion to approve the rest of these in the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve them collectively.
Okay.
So, second.
All in favor? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on to new business, let's go ahead and we'll cover these consent items first. So, item number 2 from the consent agenda. Approve a sole source purchase of pool paint for Splash in the Borough Water Park from Tinmec Company Incorporated in the amount of $23,173.
How's everyone today? I'm Alex Estrada, the aquatics manager for Splash in the Borough Water Park and Aquatic Center. This is the easiest way to explain this is pools are obviously fiberglass, plaster, lined, or concrete that requires paint. And that is what the water park has, concrete pools that require paint. Once that paint wears out, with the 150,000 people we have every summer, it's on a schedule to get painted every 2 years. In the construction of Splash, it was decided by the contractor who installed it, Swim Pro, to paint it with the Tinmec paint. Every two-part epoxy paint has its own formula from the manufacturer. And just because Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, or Tinmec has oil-based two-part epoxy, that does not mean that they can all be painted on top of each other. They can peel, strip. You have no guarantee of what's going to happen. So that is why we request to ask for the same type of paint. Now, if you choose not to, you'd have to come in and sandblast it back to the concrete and start with a different brand. And that new brand you try may not be the same quality that you've been. So the contractor who has been doing pools their whole life chose Tinmec. So we've stuck with it. In 2017, about January or February, I got a rough estimate quote prior to the wave pool of sandblasting the pools, and it was over $50,000. So I do ask to approve the Tinmec paint. It's not a preference of these people. It is just, that's the only way I can guarantee and put my name on it that that paint's going to stick to that pool. Any questions?
Y'all provide the labor, right? This is not there is no additional bid or anything for labor. Y'all do everything in-house?
That is correct. Once I asked about the labor, it's more than the cost of the paint. So you're talking about another 25,000 plus on a painter coming in there doing the labor. But we do it ourselves, slow and easy, it wins the race. And then we do a very good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes with unanimous decision.
Thank y'all.
Next up, approve an easement to Georgia Power Company. I believe this is going to be Mr. Jeff Akins.
Yes, sir. I'm the one who submitted it. I mean, I guess, is there a question about it? It's for one of the well sites for the Georgia Power to supply power to the,
Really don't have a question. I just got a statement I'd like to read.
okay.
I know this vote is about an easement, but it's really about the wells. I still think this is a bad deal for Bulloch County. I believe the taxpayers will end up paying more in the end than we have right now. I think this should have been a referendum from the beginning, and the citizens should have made this decision. The decision was made by 8 individuals, and 4 of them aren't even involved with the county anymore. The agreement that was supposed to have water surface to 25 years to supply that was supposed to be done in 2040 or 2049. Last month, the JDA and the Geechee River Keepers made a deal to shorten that to 15 years, moving the transition to 2039. That's a 10-year loss of profit that we would have potentially had and that we were sold on. Then 2 weeks ago, Governor Kemp announced a $502 million to supply this area with 100 million gallons of water per day by 2030, which means we lose another 9 years of profit that we were sold on. That 19 years of lost profit from the original deal, I believe we were told last year it would gross around $3 million a year, and that would take a significant hit, dropping us from a potential $75 million down to $18 million. I thought this was a bad deal from the start, but with the shortened time frame, it looks even worse for the taxpayers. I will be voting no on this and anything else tied to these wells. Thank you.
Any other discussion on these wells, or this motion? With that being said, do I have a motion on these?
I make a motion, we accept it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I got 4 in favor, all against, 2 against. Motion passes with 4 in favor. Moving on to number 5. Approve and ratify the use of Sand Creek Land Construction for hauling services the week of January 13th through January 17th, 2025, in the amount of $16,590.
I just need to ask to accuse myself from the vote.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? We got 5 in favor. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. Next item. Request permission to submit the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit Mental Health Court FY26 grant application for the amount of $261,541. And this is going to be Judge Michael T. Muldrew.
Good afternoon. It might be easiest to address both of these because we're also requesting permission to submit the drug court